Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm going to be doing a video series on reloading AK-47s, okay? And the reason why I'm focusing on the reloading part is because that's where the main difference is between AR-15s and AK-47s. I mean, as far as shouldering the rifle, aiming it, all that stuff's pretty much the same. The reloading aspect, okay, and the, charging it, right, putting it around to the chamber, that's where your main difference is. And we're going to have to start with the AR-15, and the reason for that is because most of us are already experienced with that, okay? And, AK guys will tell you don't try to make your AK-47, don't treat your AK-47 like an AR-15 because it is a different gun. And I can appreciate that, but the fact of the matter is that we cannot unlearn the things that we already know on our AR-15s, okay? So for that reason, we have to kind of use the AR-15 as a frame of reference, okay? And from that point, say, okay, these things we can do, these things we can't do, these things that we're gonna have to do a little bit differently, okay? So I think that that's a valid approach. Now, the reason why most of us are trained on AR-15s, and most of our tactical training is on AR-15s. Now, basically, I have been shooting AK-47s and AR-15s for about the same amount of time. However, my tactical training is on AR-15s, and the reason for that is that the tactical knowledge that's coming back to us, right? It's coming back from veterans of the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War, basically the war on terrorism. And we're getting some really great information because that, basically that the war on terrorism has pretty much been fought by, by special forces. And we got a lot of these guys coming back to us, and they're bringing us back a lot of information, especially on AR-15s, but they're also bringing us some information on AK-47s, even though maybe, they didn't use them in combat. They've been trained on them, and they've interacted with people who have been trained on them. So again, even the AK information that's coming back to us is coming back to us from vets. So we're getting a lot of good information, and my job is basically to take that information, process it, and basically I'll pass it on to you guys. Okay, so let's start with the AR-15 and what usually goes on here. Usually when we when we start with this gun, we're gonna usually lock the gun back, okay? That's usually our starting point with this gun, okay? And from that point, we're able to easily insert the magazine, okay? And then basically, we have a button on the side here that releases that, and we easily change it. We easily chamber that round that way by pushing that button, okay? So it's pretty easy process. If we want to do a tactical reload, first of all, if you want to just if this magazine is empty, you just hit the button, it drops out, you go into your pouch, you get the next button, put that in. So it's a really quick, easy change, okay? If you want to do a tactical reload, basically you grab this mag here, you grab this at the base, you grab this near the top, and you insert like that, really nice and easy. And the magazines pretty much fall out on their own. Okay, get that down out of there. Okay, so now, even if you have a magazine, like I got these white mags here, use these mags here because they're not loaded. Even if you got these white mags here, okay, this one doesn't drop free and clear, okay, but it doesn't take much effort to pull it out, okay. So even if that's in, it's really easy to do your tactical reloads. I mean, that's just, and I'm wearing insulated gloves. First of all, because it's winter and you need to, and secondly, to demonstrate. Basically, you have to work realistically, and if you're in an area where it's cold, you have to use gloves, basically. Okay? The AR-15 is easy to manipulate in that reason. And usually, if you're firing the gun and you go empty, the gun is going to lock back. Okay, and that's significant because the gun locks back on the last round. Okay, when you insert a magazine that has rounds in it, okay, that's going to go in real easy because, for example, if I close this chamber, okay, now when I insert this magazine, basically now it takes a little bit more effort to push it up in there, okay, because that top round is now pushing against the bottom of the bolt, And as I push it in there, okay, basically I have to compress that spring just a little bit more to get that round to lock in there, okay? So that can add a, if the gun was not locking back, okay, that can be a, that can cause a delay. That can make it a little bit slower, a little bit more difficult, okay? So that's how we load the AR-15. That's how we charge it. Because usually we start with the, by locking the gun open, okay? Now let's compare that to the AK-47, okay? With the AK-47, there's no way to lock this bolt back, okay? So what that means is if I take a round, first of all, the way the magazine goes in, it rocks in, okay? There's a hook in the front of the magazine, right at the top of the magazine, and there's a rivet right over here, and I use that kind of as an anchoring point. And what I do is basically I gotta hook in front of that rivet and basically put that in like that, okay? So that's how that locks in. Now, first of all, it's very easy to miss that anchoring point, right? To miss that rivet, okay, and get it in. And the other thing is that as you're rocking it in, just like would be the case with the AR-15, if you leave that bolt closed, right? When you rock that first round in, if you have rounds in here, they need to compress a little bit, okay? And basically that top round is now pushing against your bolt. So with the AR-15, we have the option of locking it open, and it will also lock open on the last round. So in most instances, when we're loading the AR-15, we're loading it with the bolt open, so that when the magazine goes in, that spring is not compressing. It's just going straight up in there. So with the AK-47, we're always going to have those two additional challenges, okay? We're going to have that challenge of first finding that hook, getting that in the right spot, and since we cannot lock the bolt open, it takes a little bit more effort to get that round in. Okay, so that's just an additional challenge. Now, for the most part, the way I've always, when I was just shooting to shoot, when I was just basically just doing marksmanship and just teaching people how to shoot the gun, and how the gun operates. A lot of times what I'll typically do is I'll just take the mag, I'll use my right hand, put that in, pull the bolt back, chamber around that way, safety goes on, okay? So for the most part, a lot of times I will chamber it that way, and it's just because it's just more convenient, okay? Now a lot of people, when they, if you look at people that train tactically with AK-47s, what they'll usually do is they'll use it like an AR-15, where basically they'll hold the gun up here, and get that over here so it doesn't roll away. And what they'll do is they'll put it in like this. Now this takes a little bit more effort. Okay, not a whole lot more effort, but that can take a little bit more effort. But you have the benefit of being able to see ahead of you. Now, one of the benefits of doing it with the gun down with this hand is basically I have a lot more strength pushing down than I do pushing up, because here I'm using a smaller muscles, right? I'm using my shoulder muscles. Here I'm using my chest to crank down. So a lot of times if you are having difficulty getting the getting that magazine in there, from this position, switching to this position might help you out. Now the other thing is, make sure there's nothing in there. Okay, now the other thing to be aware of is, we spoke about the bolt does not lock open on this gun. Okay, we can cheat that. Okay, if we're having a magazine that's giving us a real hard time, like for example these Tapcos, they tend to be a little bit thicker. A lot of times I have a hard time getting it in there. Where are you? Okay, missed it. So a lot of time I have a hard time getting him in there. Okay. Real hard time getting him in there. Okay, so one of the ways that we can cheat this, if we're shooting kneeling or we're behind cover, we can basically rest the muzzle of the ground, behind our target or on the ground, pull the charging handle back, and there you go. Get the magazine in that way, and then let go of the charging handle. So basically what that's going to do is, it's holding the bolt open, so it's easier to get that magazine in there, because that the spring is no longer compressing, as it's trying to push up against the bolt in order to get in. And at the same time, when we release the bolt, we're chambering around, okay? Because, let me get that out, make sure there's nothing in there. Let me use the steel ones, because the steel ones tend to go in a little bit easier. With the steel ones, that they hook in a little bit easier, and sometimes they don't. But hold the bolt open, a lot of times they'll go in easier. Now, some of them, like this Yugo one, they will lock open on the last round, okay? So this Yugo one, as you can see, it locked open because there was nothing in there. Now, here's the problem, though. When you pull the magazine out, the bolt's going to close. So having one of these magazines that lock open on the last round does not really help you in the reloading process, because as soon as you pull it out, it's going to close, and now when you try to insert the next magazine, now you're pushing against that closed bolt. There you go, we got that in, okay? So a couple of things for you guys to think about, try out. And like I said, this is mostly about knowing the differences between the two. Differences between your AR and the AK. And I think everybody should be proficient in both. Even if you train on ARs, mostly you should also train on AKs, because that might be the gun that you find on the battlefield, or depending on what's going on, that might be the gun that you end up using. So you want to know what the differences are. Now, the other thing for you guys to do, as you guys are trying this, you also have to, because it's a lot easier to do all these things standing up, but you also got to do these things in a prone position, okay? And again, with the AR-15, you got around in here, close that. Okay, if you're on the ground, shooting, all right? So you're here, bang, 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 drop it, put the next one in. Okay, that's easy stuff. With the AK-47, because of the way it rocks in, because of some of those difficulties that you might have, it will take a little bit more effort, and that's why it needs to be practice. Let's use these tap coats, because again, I know they're a little bit more difficult to work with. One of the reasons why I do like the tap coats is because the steel mags tend to rust more, so they require a little bit more maintenance. I have to oil these more often. The plastic ones, obviously, because they're plastic, they don't rust. So even though these can be a little bit more difficult to get in there, I like using them for a lot of the training that I do, just because, especially in weather like this where I know they're going to get wet. Basically it's, they're not going to rust on me. So with the AK, here we are. We're shooting, bang, bang, bang. Gun goes empty. All right, we got rock this out. So now we have to rock this in on our elbows. So again, there could be a little bit of difficulty there. I managed to get it in. I'm going to take it back out. And basically one of the options is if I pull this bolt back, there we go, got it in. And then that chambers the first round, and I can go back to work. Okay? So, put the gun safe. Something for you guys to think about. And this is one of those things where we're, like I said, we're not supposed to really compare an AR to an AK, because basically these guns were designed under different conditions, different circumstances, and the logic of the armies that use them is there's also differences there. But the reality is that here in the U.S. we have access to both of them, and depending on what's going on, we may end up using either one. So we need to know what's different from one to the other. So if we do end up using an AK, we know what to do, and we can do it well. So those are my thoughts on that. Let me know what you guys think. I'll talk to you guys next time.